I don't get it. I do not get why more homesteaders don't raise sheep. Lend me your ear and I'll change your mind, because sheep are wonderful. It seems like the path that most homesteaders take, they start with chickens. Chickens are like the gateway drug to homesteading in a good way. We like that gateway drug. And then after chickens, I usually see people get goats, which I think is weird because unless you're eating the goat or milking the goat, what are they good for? And then after goats, I see a lot of people with pigs. And frankly, I've got nothing bad to say about pigs, but they do take more time than sheep. And then after chickens, goats, pigs, I see things like kind of fringe animals like rabbits, ducks, or bees. All very common. We've done actually all three of those. And then oddly enough, people jump right to cows. And sheep, I feel like, are the thing that I see least. And I've got to wonder why. So today is my goal to try to convince somebody out there to at least think about sheep for your homestead, whether you have a homestead now or you dream of one day. If we can spare a few moments for some backstory here, these sheep are new to my homestead, although I've been raising sheep since we started homesteading, which has been almost 4 years now, and sheep have been with us the entire time. These sheep, as you can tell by being covered in grass, are young. They are young rams. They're kind of a mutt Katahdin Dorper cross. They're all intact rams, and the goal is all these are destined for the freezer. We're raising out rams for the first time. In the past, we've had more of a traditional breeding operation with full-blood Dorpers. I've got videos all about the challenges, the hurdles, the good, the bad with that, and why I made this change. But that's not what today's video is about. Obviously, sheep were still good enough for me to want to keep doing sheep. These sheep are still pretty camera shy. I've only had them for about a month, so if I get closer than 20 feet to them, they just bolt. Okay, in no particular order, let me just start rattling off why I think sheep are a good fit on a homestead. First one has got to be transportation. Okay, transporting sheep is a lot easier. So especially if you're homesteading on a small number, you might not even need a trailer. I don't have a trailer. Instead, I have this kind of like cage thing that I got from Tractor Supply online. It costs about $500. And if you have the muscle to lift up a sheep, they can go in that trailer thing. Whereas a pig, a cow, you're really going to need something special to transport. You will need a trailer. I mean, you're not picking, even if you think you can deadlift, 250 pounds of pig, maybe when it's dead you could, but ironically, you're not deadlifting a live animal. That's why it's called a deadlift. You're just not picking them up and putting them in there. Sheep, you can. You'll notice a lot of what I have today has to do about their size. The next one is that home butchery is a real viable option with sheep, whereas for other animals, it's not necessarily an option. So pigs, I know a lot of people, a lot of YouTubers even who do pigs at home. I'd love to be able to do pigs at home one day, but the equipment, for one, you should probably have a tractor or at the very least a large gamble to lift up your pigs. You need a scalder. You got to drain them. It can be time consuming and you need a lot of people to do it. Whereas sheep, you can pretty much do that with maybe 1 or 2 people. And if the weather cooperates with you, they don't need to hang that long. They can just hang in your, if you have cold weather, they can just hang outdoors for a few days. Whereas a pig, that may not work. Cow, you're definitely not doing a home butchery with that. Also, the meat is much more manageable. To go through a sheep, like a big mature sheep, ours usually hang at about between 55 and 65 pounds. Which means we're bringing home about 50 pounds of usable cuts and ground meats. 50 pounds is a lot easier to work with than, say, like a pig, who you might be taking home 200 pounds, or a cow, which is exponentially more than that. And then it's also much more than a goat. A goat is not going to give you that much meat. I've never processed goats, but I've heard from a lot of people, including people on this channel, who have commented and said that goats usually give between like 35 and 40 pounds. Per goat, and the butcher process is still the same, except you get 10 to 20 pounds more out of a sheep. So speaking of goats, goats can be quite a nuisance. They're just really irritating. Goats can get in your business and test your fences, test your patience. But what I wanted to say specifically is that the sheep will respect a fence much more than a goat will. Sheep are easier to keep in one place. Sheep are also pretty darn easy to handle. Like if you can get them in a corral, you can handle them. Whereas a pig, like, and I raise pigs, we're doing pigs for the first time here. I can't even imagine what life would be like if I had to do anything serious with a hog. Whereas sheep kind of carry a coat of wool or hair that allows you to grip them. You can get on top of them. If you need to drench them or deal with their hooves or anything, they're pretty darn manageable. Much easier to handle than a pig. Also, their setup is pretty easy. I've been talking about fences for a minute, but let's just say what that actually looks like. So right now I'm on a pasture that has about 2 acres, and what I do is I have subdivided this into 5 pretty much equal setups here. So I just moved them to this big old patch today. And the goal is you kind of strip graze them or mob graze them. So that's why this grass is so much taller than they are, is because, well, they were just moved here. And so a note on mob grazing, you can see what we do. Not everyone has to do it this way. And in fact, if I had more sheep, I probably would not do it this way. But they were just over here. Now that grass is super low, not because the sheep grazed it that low, but rather, like, this is kind of new pasture. We get a lot of weeds. You can see we still have plenty over there. We mow it when they leave. We just get on the riding lawnmower. You do not have to do that, okay? This is the first year I've done that. It's just that we do not, like, these sheep are young. They're not very aggressive eaters yet. And I suppose I could mob graze them in much tighter settings, but even still, they're just not at a size yet. Now, if they were still attached to their mothers, we'd mob graze it differently. But I just want to point out here, just how easy it is. Like, we just mow a strip down here, place the electric fence, put an energizer on each side, and bam, they're happy here for about a week or 2. So that's easy, right? I mean, compare that to a pig, where I'm doing a lot of pig comparisons, but it's the same thing with chickens too. You have to feed them every day. A pig, at least we feed our pigs twice a day. It doesn't take that long, but it takes, about 10 minutes a day. My pigs have usually dumped out their water and, need some TLC in terms of, some extra water chores. So it could be about 20 or 30 minutes a day combined with pigs. The sheep, truthfully, I'm not spending even a minute a day on them unless I need to move them or fill up their water. So, like, sometimes I'll come out just to check on them, make sure they're all out here, but truthfully, I'm not spending much time with the sheep every day, and I love it. That's a big reason why I think homesteaders could really benefit from having sheep. They're really fun and rewarding animals, and I haven't even talked about the lambs yet. The lambs are so hardy, okay? I've never lost a young sheep. I've even had some pretty crummy mother ewes, and the lambs still get by. I've never had to formally intervene and, bottle feed one of them. I know that happens to some people, but we've just had really good luck with that. They've been incredibly manageable animals that really take care of themselves so long as you move them frequently. Okay, speaking of pigs and chickens, let's talk about food costs. Grass grows on the ground, right? And that's free. Like, once you have it established, it's totally free. Now, some people can make the argument, it's like, well, what about hay or blah, blah, blah? It's like, yeah, you might need hay if you run out of grass, okay? But compare that to, man, we are getting floored with how much the last 2 months of finishing out a hog costs. I feel like I'm running to the feed store every week and thinking, like, this will be the last feed, this will be the last feed. I spent a few $100s per pig more than I thought I would. Chickens are kind of a similar thing. It's just kind of never ending. And yeah, you can supplement chicken and pig feed with your house and kitchen scraps and garden scraps, but they usually don't have a diet full of scraps. They need some real food. Sheep, this is the real food, okay? What grows naturally, which cuts down costs tremendously. Aside from the winter, depending on where you're at, I don't have a feed bill for sheep. Minerals, I guess. Minerals is it, which are a one-time purchase for like a year if you're on a homestead level and you don't have many sheep. Also, shelter needs are great. Sheep basically carry a shelter on their back. We have a very easy shelter system that's basically just some fence posts that have holes in them, and we fasten a tarp to it through some straps. Very cheap, very effective. It has lasted longer than the really expensive stuff that's actually made for housing sheep. $30 or $40 purchase between the tarp and the straps, so we like it. Okay, it's not just sunshine and rainbows when you're talking about sheep for homesteading, and that's a big thing that I want to make sure I cover too. There are real challenges to it. And one of the big ones that I want to call out is land. So you have to have land for it. What I don't want, my worst fear is to have somebody watch this video that only has like an acre of land and say, I'm gonna buy 10 sheep next month because PJ said it would be easy and manageable. Please do not do that, okay? You need land for your sheep. A lot of people ask me, well, how many sheep per acre? And it depends on so many things. I like to start with 2 ewes per acre, and then you can probably go up. But aside from that little quick formula detour, I just want to say I am not about CAFOs, confined animal feedlot operations. I am not trying to inspire anyone to keep too many sheep on little acreage. I met someone recently who told me that they learned on YouTube from a prominent YouTuber who this person said that she keeps 10 sheep per acre. It's just not right. It's just not how it's supposed to be done. So that's a disclaimer. You need land because you got to move them and rotate them. Okay, another disclaimer. If you're going to breed sheep, which is totally doable, there are many options. You can breed sheep, you can buy rams to finish out. I've done both. I'm doing the ram option right now. But if you're breeding sheep and you need to keep an intact male ram, well, congratulations, because you have one of the most deadly animals to humans on your farm or homestead, farmstead, whatever. Another unfortunate truth, sheep get sick. Parasites are part of it. That's why I'm mob grazing. That's why I have that fence behind me set up. That's why they're in this tight operation, and I'll move them in a week. Sheep get sick, you rotate them enough, it improves the health of the grass, health of your sheep, it reduces the need for parasites. That's another reason why I mow behind me. It's less places for parasites and worms to hide, because the sun can pierce the ground and just kind of burn up the bugs in there. But sheep do get sick. They get parasites, and that's an unfortunate thing. But you can mitigate that with good management. I mentioned this before, but if you do run out of grass, that can get expensive. Hay's not cheap, especially if you want to feed quality hay for pregnant ewes, like alfalfa. That's usually not cheap. The last little disclaimer I'll give, I've kind of hinted at it, but I'll just outright say it. Rotational grazing takes time, okay? I don't want the reputation of sheep to be that, yeah, they don't need anything. You just put them on grass, you walk away, and in 9 months, you'll have food, or you'll have grown-up sheep, or you'll have new lambs. Like, it doesn't work like that. You do need to move them, and that takes time. You can pull your hair out with the stress it takes to rotate sheep onto paddocks like this. Today we just did it, and it wasn't too bad, but I've gone nuts trying to move sheep. So it takes time, it can be frustrating, but the results make it very worth it. Another great reason that sheep are good for homesteaders is they are a very annual animal, okay? So their gestation and their seasonality really lends itself to basically a year-round thing. So you can get into a schedule and kind of have chores. Usually for us, we put a ram out with the ewes in the fall. We can expect lambs in the spring. We separate in the summer, and then about that time the following year, when it's winter, we've got those sheep that were born last spring are now either going into the freezer or being sold. So it's a very annual turnover, which makes things very easy, which is great because pigs are nice, but breeding pigs is a pain and it requires a lot of intensive operation. Usually it makes sense for homesteaders to buy a feeder animal, whereas if you do want to be in like a breeding operation, sheep are nice because it's a faster turnaround. Cows could be good too, but cows are a much longer turnaround than sheep. So there you have it. I'm a big fan of keeping sheep. I have been for the last 4 years, and I see them in my future for many years to come. Sheep are pretty docile animals and don't require a lot of work on a day-to-day homestead farm thing. I'm PJ with the High Mountain Homestead. I'll see you on the next video. Just kind of show what the fruits of rotational grazing is. This is a pasture. This is a more mature pasture that I've had cleared for longer, that we kind of intensively rotationally grazed a lot the past 2 years, and I love it. It's beautiful. We even have some grass growing under those pines back there. It's just awesome.